Okay, Alan, you're live.
Good evening and welcome to the Alan Merritt Show, the behind closed doors, every Monday night at 6 p.m. I've got guests tonight of Sandy Smith and Jane Favory. She's going to say a few words tonight, so we'll come to Jane in a few minutes. But I don't know if people have seen a lot of what's gone on at this weekend, but I've seen some horrific brutality by the police this weekend. Some really horrific brutality. They tried to, and I'll tell you, I think John was doing a live stream in Whitehall, and I just see this mad dash by the police, and all these people just cradled this woman. I can't think of her name. Shamana, is it Shamana?
Kate Soramani.
Yeah, Shamani, Kate Shamani. And it was fantastic the way them people cradled her, and full credit to them because they actually protected her. And it was incredible to see that. And when I saw the Dover videos and I saw Nobby speaking to the little veteran speaking to a lady, he was just speaking to a lady and he's back to the police. It was like a kind of like a military tactic and almost like snatch and grab. I don't know if it was a military tactic in Northern Ireland, or if I've seen football matches where the police kind of this kettling thing's been going on a long time. They used to do it in football matches donkeys years ago for people saying this kettling's a new thing. It's not. And they used to get you walking down the street and they used to aim you in a direction they wanted you to go. So whatever way they aim you to go, you go. And they used to make it so it got narrower and narrower and narrower. And then used to get these snatch squads. They used to pull, we used to call them, I think, spotters. And they used to spot you. And if you came up as a naughty lad, and a lot of people seem to forget that donkeys years ago, when we had a lot of the problems with the IRA in London and the centre of London, the city of London, it became the ring of steel around London, and they used to put these cameras up. And from that, they got AMPR, which recognised number plates on vehicles. And that's gone all around the world now. Every country's got the AMPR. But what people don't know now is that if you have any software now, cameras, iPhones or phones, you tend to get a little square sometimes comes up so you can line that person's head in the picture. Now they developed the software from ANPR to facial recognition. And that facial recognition, a lot of the cameras in London now are going facial recognition. So they can spot people, and wouldn't be surprised if most of the big cities now have facial recognition cameras where if they're looking for a particular person, it kind of pings like the ANPR. Once a vehicle passes a police vehicle, it pings and brings an alert to the police officers. Of course, they know there's something wrong with that, and then it'll either come up on their computer, inboard computer, or whatever the case might be. But it just goes to show what world we live in, because I thought the Mark Steele thing was absolutely brilliant when the copper stopped him and he went to get an ice cream. That was a classic. I think Mark should get an award for that. That was absolutely brilliant, where he just walked off from the policeman and said, I'm going to get an ice cream. And it was, yeah, Mr. Wimpy. Brilliant, that was. So without further ado, I'm just going to show you a little thing here before I bring my guests in. Look, on there, you've got me in with me Beechholme survivors, Justice for Beechholme survivors. Then you can see me crocodile with the child in the crocodile's mouth and save our children from the paedophiles. And there's the little bubba in the crocodile's mouth. And this side, you've got BBAM. Now, there's a person called John Wedger that you should all know. He calls me for some reason Big Bad Alan Merritt. So there you go, Big Bad Alan Merritt. And that brought a smile to my guest's face, and I'm going to bring them in now. Hi, Sandy, Jane.
How are we doing? I've got another badge here.
Oh, that's brilliant.
There you go, that's yours.
Oh, cheers, my man. Thank you very, very much.
So that's that made up.
Good lad, good lad, good lad. And you know, a lot of people are asking for them. I've done them in 7 different languages.
Yeah, I see you had quite a few. You know, I heard you talking there about on Saturday with police and all that. I get pulled up in Glasgow for mentioning masturbate. It was a very disgusting and rude word to use in front of children.
Yeah.
So they warned me not to do it again or else. So more or less I was going to get lifted, you know. But I mean, what other word can you use for it?
I see that they did the same tactic when I was in Nottingham a few weeks back. Some guy was shouting about Muslims, and then suddenly a cop came out from nowhere, pushed him to one side and get in that doorway, he said. So everybody gathered round the policeman with their cameras and their phones and was recording him and making sure they took his badge number just in case it went to, and this guy was just apologetic and all that, saying, oh, I didn't mean this, but it stems from the way, I don't know, the way it's got, and even Boris Johnson's turned around and said he's going to clamp down on protesters now. And the way what we've seen from this weekend, I think you're better off not liaising with the police and not speaking to the police. But that's my personal opinion. Well, we've always spoken to a liaison officer with the police when we've done big rallies or gone to do big rallies. And I've learned so much from doing this because I tried to do everything above board and do it legitimate and go through the insurance route with Sue and everything else. But they were going to charge us £600. Then they wanted a method statement. Then they want a risk assessment. And then they want so much. And it goes on and on and on and on in the end. Until in the end, it felt like they were trying to fob us off. But that's what you get that all the time. That they seem to kind of fob you off with and don't realise what they're actually supposed to do. And, you know, no, it just annoys me. And I saw some horrible things this weekend, and it alarmed me that they were knocking elderly people, should we put. There was a disabled woman knocked to the ground, and there was another man, an elderly man, knocked to the ground. And another guy, I think, outside Marks and Spencer, or was it in Marks and Spencer's? He ended up having a heart attack. He's in hospital, and there was talk about that he might have suffered a fatal, but we've heard that he is recovering in hospital.
Oh, good.
So, but it just goes to show, I mean, when they start pushing and shoving, that is assault. I don't care what anybody says, they are not. They're duty bound not to do that. That is classed as, once they put their hands on you and shove you, I don't care what anybody says, it's an assault. And they were trying to wind up and trying to antagonise those guys at Dover. From what I saw on that, from the lots and lots of feeds that I've seen from Dover, and it was quite disgusting to see what our police forces turn into. And then you wonder why they lose respect. Because when they talk to you, they talk at you, not to you, right? And they try to make you part of their system, their little clique, their little system, what they're so, you know, attached to, their rules and regulations. We have to adhere to their rules and regulations, and their methods are so, do you understand what I'm saying? And I'm telling you this and I'm telling you that. And when you look at different laws and rules and regulations, and I look at, if someone's murdered, they use common law. And the common law, you did murder such and such a person, blah, blah, blah. But that is the only time they use it. They will not use it at any other time. But the Queen swore an oath to her people, and we're supposed to use the Queen. And why have we got the figureheads still like the lion and the unicorn still behind, and emblems on uniforms and stuff like that, if they're not going to adhere to the Queen's law? And we always used to say, I think years ago, Tony, you back me up on this, didn't they always used to say about Queensberry rules? You know, if you're going to have a fight, make sure you fight under Queensberry rules. And it was like a gentleman's fight and a proper fight, you know. And we've changed so much, and it seems to have speeded up since COVID-19 reared its head. I'm not a disbeliever in it. I'm not saying that people haven't died from it. I'm not saying anything contrary to the COVID pandemic. But what I'm saying is, I think it's a severe flu. I think Spanish flu killed more people than this pandemic. I think David Icke was speaking in London a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking around about the thing's got a calendar now where it knows when it's going to have a second wave. It's got a tape measure, so you have to be 3 meters or 2 meters away from it. I mean, what the hell's going on? Isn't it an intelligent virus? You know. So yeah, there's a lot, and this face mask malarkey. I mean, the natural thing to do with a mask is you breathe oxygen in and carbon dioxide out. If you're in a mask for any period of time, surely that can't do your own health, let alone we kids and baby kids and small children in schools that are developing, and their bodies are developing, and their lungs and everything else and their immune system is all developing. That surely can't help. But that's just my opinion, and hey ho, I might be wrong on a lot of things, but what I'm seeing and some of the things I'm seeing, the world seems to be changing for the worse. And with that, I'm going to bring in Sandy and Jane now. Jane, do you want to say something, or Sandy, do you want to have a little say about, because you've got some events coming up, haven't you, Sandy?
Right. I'll come in first if you don't mind. You were talking there about the masks. About half an hour ago, I was in one of these shops in Bridge of Weir. It's an ironmonger shop called Home Hardware, and I had a mask on. Now, I'm bothered with asthma. I'm exempt from wearing a mask, but I put one on anyway, just to see folk moaning and whatnot, especially down this area. So I put a mask on. Went up to pay for what I was getting, and the girl in that shop, she goes to me, "Get that mask down." Really? Like, it was like bloody couriers again, the way they spoke to you. This young girl spoke to me. So I goes to her, I goes, listen, I goes, I've got it on, I'm exempt from wearing, I don't care, get that mask out. No, that's illegal, is it not? You're not supposed to ask anybody, because they could have a personal condition, something badly up with them, they don't want to tell people about. So what right has somebody got to question you why you not got a mask on? We had the same in B&Q in Paisley on Saturday, with the same thing with a mask. They wouldn't let us in unless we put a mask on. And I told the guy, he goes, "So we're exempt, get a mask on."
This is, the rules are well, we say rules. Yeah. The rules aren't clear on it because they seem to move the goalposts quite often.
Yeah, you know that. Who do you blame here? Do you blame the people in the shop for not getting the right information, or do you blame the people in the shops? That's bad. You know, but anyway, enough of that. But anyway, I just want to say, last Wednesday night, I met 2 young girls. They're in their early 20s. There's La and Bex, and they're on the Save Our Children up here in Glasgow.
I'll see that, Sand.
And honest to God, they're a credit to the young generation. Their site's only been going, about a week, and they've got over 6,500 people on their site already. And they're giving the Quarriers Warriors their full support. So it was just to thank La and Bex. We met them on Saturday, and oh wow, they're unbelievable. So I was asked to speak, and I brought Jane up for a while, and we done a thing. We're going back this Saturday again to Glasgow, and then on the 26th of September at 2 p.m, it's Uniting the Warriors, we're going to call it. And what we're going to do is we're going to get all the Quarriers, well, as many of the Quarriers Warriors as we can to come support this. Beechholme, the Beechholme Warriors and that. And we're going to have the guest speakers, which yourself will be there, I'll be there, Jane will be there. Who else have we got?
You might have to hold me back, Jane,
Hi, we'll
in
get,
case my legs go.
we'll get a legend man himself, John Wedger, Brian Clare, and a few others, all coming up as guest speakers.
Brilliant.
So that starts at 2 p.m. We're wanting to try and make this as big as we can. We know it will be. We know it will be big. And then on the Sunday, the 27th, at 2 p.m, we'll be in the Knittingsill Graveyard at Quarriers Orphan Homes. This will be our first anniversary. This is where I got emotional. I'll try to hold it together. But there were 338 little children laid to rest in the Knittingsill Graveyard, and Quarriers Orphan Homes removed their headstones. And we discovered this. And we fought to get Quarriers to put the headstones back. We're still fighting to get them to finish the work off. There's still work to be finished off. 3 children's names has to be added to the plaque that they didn't even know was there. There's graffiti on the plaque. It was, what was it? One of them. But they went up, it's as if they went up with a nail and scored it so you can't read it. And it's a big bronze plaque. So I don't know how. Whoever scored it when they would take this out. And it was ha ha yeah, bar Stuart, but the full word. What was it? The children, no, that was the one I told. Hi, the children are dead in here, I'm not. And then they were one at the top, ha ha, you're dead, I'm not. You can still see the one, ha ha, you're dead, I'm not. So we're wanting that removed. That's disgusting, and whoever done that.
Wow.
You know, it
That's
takes.
That's sickening.
You know, that's bad. Now, we'd even to fight to get them to put gates on, because people were coming in and letting their dogs crap. They're still letting their people walking through, leaving the gates home. So we want springs in the gate so that it keeps it shut. Because we're fed up lifting dogs here. Every time we go up there, we're guaranteed to get 1, 2, not as many as it used to be. Don't get me wrong here, it was bad at one time. And we filled just over 2.5 bin bags between Buckfast wine bottles, Chinese carry-out cartons, and dog poo. Now, who in their right mind would go into a kid's graveyard and let this happen? But anyway, it's changed night. But as I say, on the 27th of September, 2 p.m. at the Knittingsill Graveyard, Quarriers Village, in Bridgewere, Scotland. We'll be there from 2 p.m. to hold a service. This will be our first anniversary of seeing the children's headstones being put back down in place. You've got to see us to believe it is. I've done many things in my life, Alan, but boy, that takes it. Just seeing the kids being noticed once more is big. So this is our first anniversary service.
I might get emotional looking at that.
Oh, yeah. But
it might bring a tear to my eye. I don't know about anything else because
last year, yeah, do you believe us to see it, Alan? Honest, and this is true. We had 338 white roses, and every child got a white rose. And we started like 1, 2, 3, and following. And we all placed a white rose in every child's headstone as a mark of respect to let them know we didn't forget them. And just as the first white rose went down, it started to rain, heavy rain. But it wasn't raining anywhere else, it was only raining in that graveyard. And as soon as the last white rose got put down, the rain stopped. And we've seen it, we're still talking about it. And the next thing, all these leaves started to in and out and waving about, because if they were getting in and out, like, in that row, down the next, just waving, like, you know, like,
oh my God.
and I said, Jenna goes, look at that. We're talking about it. Everybody was seeing this and we were talking about this. It was the weirdest thing we'd ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And after I come home, I used to dress up in the full gear, Robert the Bruce, sword, a lot. And I led the Warriors. And when we done the road shows, I was on the Trojan.
Yeah.
Trojan, 16 hands tall.
Big
Place
horse.
a big horse. And I was on the gear with that getting led round with my piper at the back of me and the warriors with our banners. And we done that on the Saturday before the service. And we were up in Edinburgh of all places, full of tourists and that. Stop, Chinese, you name them, they were all out with cameras and filming and following us. That was, well, that's something all standing in my mind. But on the Sundays, I was saying with us, just after I come home, I got a phone call to tell me that when we were in that graveyard having our service, Trojan sadly passed away.
Oh, good.
And Trojan had a heart attack.
Yeah.
He was 11 years of age, still a young horse.
Yeah.
And the girl that gave me, Debbie, is still breaking her heart. She's going through, bad. Debbie's got her own story to tell as well, but it's not for me to say. But this year, I know she'll not be there. If you give me a wee sec, we've got a wee plaque we're going to put up. And it's a little gold horseshoe. It's an actual horseshoe, but we got it gold plated.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And down the bottom, we've got, excuse me a minute, I'm trying to find my glasses. I can't read without my glasses. We've got Trojan, the 2nd of the 5th, 2006 to the 29th of the 9th, 219. Now, there's a special date here, and it's the 29th of the 9th, right? In a month. The 29th of the 9th every month.
Yeah.
And when we started the Quarriers Warriors, it was on the 29th, right? 29th of the 9th, day 13, we started the Quarriers Warriors. Pardon me. So when the headstones were all finished, and by the time we had our service, it was the 29th of the 9th. So we wanted it on a Sunday, so it fell. Plus the 29th is my birthday. So I was sure I hang me, but we're going to have that up. We're going to put it on the wall. We're not even asking quarters. We're going to do it. Because we're fed up asking quarters to do stuff in there. No. Well, we're not the kids anymore. We're the voices now. The children that hasn't got a voice. So why should we do anything? But as I say, we're doing this. Now we've got the big road show, the big one in Glasgow, on the 26th of September at 2 p.m. Then at 2 p.m. on the Sunday at the Nittingshill Graveyard, Quarriers Village, it's our service of remembrance for the little children of Quarriers and all children who were abused and gained their golden wings while in care. So, thanks, Alan. I'm going to hand over to Jane now.
Before we go further and speak with Jane, Jane's story is quite horrific. What happened to Jane is disgusting, disgraceful, inhuman, and it might actually trigger some people. So just hope Jane can stay strong with this, and she's a good girl, and she's become a very, very good friend of all us Beechholme survivors. And I say that sincerely, with love and respect. And I'm nearly welling up myself here, Jane. I don't know about you, but I'm going to, without further ado, because it makes me emotional, her story. And look at me, state of me. And I'm only the host, and I'm going to bring my guest on and let Jane say something. Go on, Jane.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, carry on. Just give us a little bit of an insight to, your story, because you said it got worse, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, maybe some of the listeners have heard most of what happened. I went into care when I was 3, and I didn't come out of care till I was 14. And during that time in Quarriers, I was sexually abused, physically abused, mentally abused and butchered. They tried to make me normal, but I was born without fingers on my left hand especially. and Corey's decided to give me these fingers, and that entails having to go to hospital every month where they cut my hand and put wires through and try to pull my fingers to an adequate length, then stretch the bone. But while this is going on, Corey's has an image. Everything has to be perfect, and children must be perfect. So every child had to wear white gloves. Well, every girl had to wear white gloves. And when I put my hands into the gloves, I actually had fitted the ends of the gloves. Sometimes it was with bits of plastic or wire, whatever. But they'd force my hands in. Nobody could see the blood because the wire or whatever was inwards. And I had to stand there and pose as if I was a poster child. I say poster child for a reason.
Yeah.
In some of the second lot of records I got, this is quite difficult actually. In the second lot of records I got, there's people asking if quarriers could supply them with a little girl, preferably blonde hair, brown or blue eyes, between the age of 5 or 7. Now, I've questioned and I've asked to know who these people were. I know of one couple, but that was a nice experience. But if you were genuinely interested in children, would it matter what colour of hair they had, or their eyes, or their age? I have nightmares, and I still have nightmares. And I think I'll always have nightmares. And I'll always feel broken as long as I can look at my hands, because that's what Corey has done. That's what they thought was adequate fingers.
Wow.
And then you've got this hand. Now on this hand was 2 digits like that were there. I've got 2 thumbs that don't look, that one's fine, but that one isn't. And even up to the age of 16 and older, I was still getting operations on my hands to correct the work that quarries had done to my body. Even when I was in my, let me think, when the fingers on this hand started to play up because of what quarries had done, the blood supply stopped. So they had to be taken right back to the bone. And I was in my 30s when that had to get done. So all through my childhood and my adult life, I was left, I couldn't hide it, it's visible. That's one of the things that Corey has done to me that I could never run away from. Even the other week there, this lady, I don't know if you remember the story, she walked past and she said, she started talking to Sandy. And then when she heard my name, she went, oh, we used to sing a song about you, Stumpy. Now, I had completely forgotten about that name and that word Stumpy. But immediately I was back to being that little girl that was bullied. You know, and sometimes it's just one word, a trigger, a smell, the carbolic soap, the smell, that doesn't go away. Even when you're having your bath or your shower, it just might come into your mind. You might just be holding ordinary soap and you get a flashback and you can smell that soap. You can smell that pink carbolic soap. It was hideous. I got it put in my mouth because I questioned whether Jesus was legitimate. You know, so that's putting it politely, but it was basically that. But to move on from the horrible childhoods, while I was in there, I never seen, now I'm going to keep calling him my old man because he doesn't deserve to be called father. I never seen him the whole time I was there. Never seen him. On my records, it says that he put us up for adoption when I was only 7. And he never let us, the Corriers never let us get adopted because they wouldn't make any money out of us.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right.
What was that?
I used to sit once a month. He would write to Corries and say he was coming to visit. I used to sit at a bay window on the seat that was at the window, looking out and thinking, that man might be my daddy, that man might be. None of them were my daddy. None of them. He never bothered. He never came. He got into £900 of debt with Quarriers. And 2 weeks previous to us being dumped on him, he'd once again asked for us to be adopted. I now know that Quarriers helped him qualify for a bigger house. If they took us, he would qualify for a bigger house. That's all he wanted. He didn't want us. When we went out there to stay, I'll show you how bad it was. We actually ran away from my old man to go back to Quarriers. Because when we were taken out to him, everything looked lovely. With tablecloth, the piano in the corner, everything beautiful. The minute that door shut, off came the mattress off the bed, everything. It was in that room. That's not your room. That's your room. We had springs on a board, duffel coats as blankets. He had his own children, and he was still bleeding. She was pregnant again. What happened was, I was 14 by this time. I had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go to work in a potato factory. I've always been tiny, and I was even tinier then, and the way my hands were. And I had to pick out the bad potatoes from the good potatoes as it came down this big drill thing. I did that, got home, got my brother and sister up. We didn't have any breakfast. Sometimes we went to school with wet clothes because I couldn't get them dry enough. We'd go to school, that's the only place we got a meal. But even then you were bullied because you used to get a ticket, so everybody knew who was getting free dinners. And even my sister got it worse because the teacher took her out to the front of the class and said, "This is Wilma, she's an orphan." She wasn't an orphan, she had been in a home, but she wasn't an orphan. After school, there was a shop called Massey's down the road, and I got a job in there as well. And at the end of the day, I'd maybe get a couple of potatoes and a bit of bread or whatever hadn't been sold that day. I'd take it home. We didn't get to sit at the dinner table. I had the wee box and 3 wee kind of stool things. We sat in the hallway, and I'd make some chips for me, my brother and my sister. And I'd have the bread that I'd got from the shop, and we sit there, and to cheer them up, we used to make a wee game of it. Now this sounds bad, but I can't help it. We used to get the chips, and to make sure everybody had the same, we used to lay the bread out and line the chips out and count how many coffins. We used to go 1 coffin, 2 coffins. That's how many chips we had. But it made it, we weren't concentrating on how little we had. It made us look like we had more. I know it sounds daft, but to us as kids, that's the way it worked. The amount of times my old man would come in drunk with my stepmom. He'd come in and he'd call on one of us to go down and make him a cup of tea or well, it was tea or coffee. I don't remember him ever having coffee. He'd bring his friends. Now, my father was a member of the Masonic Lodge. To me, that didn't mean anything. He'd bring his friends up and humiliate me and my sister. Look at them like, we never had breasts, but he'd go, look, none of them are not even growing. Mine were like grapes and my sister's were like plums. And there was something that was opposite me around to think I had plums, she had grapes, I don't know. Then one of his mates would grab me and sit me on his lap and start bouncing me up and down. I felt really uncomfortable, really did. But it's all I had known actually, because it was in Quarriers I was abused. And I just thought, oh, this must be, I now know that him bouncing me up and down, he was getting pleasure, but we actually suffered that often that it became natural. My father would come in as well, and if he was drunk and I had even looked at him the wrong way, the worst one was he threw me across the room and he split my whole face open. because I mentioned something about the light wouldn't work. Next door to me was a family, Mr. and Mrs. Savoury. I got you. Yeah. So I need to take a wee drink.
You're doing really well, darling.
Wait,
You're doing really well, babe.
Next door to me was a family, Mr. and Mrs. Savoury, 2 sons and a daughter. They were our rescuers. They took us in and fed us. Their oldest son, he was just about 10 years older than me. He was really nice, lovely man. And before I knew it, I was engaged to him. I was 16, I was engaged. 17, I got married. But I didn't see all this. I mean, to me, somebody gave me hugs and told me that I never had that. Nobody ever hugged me. Nobody ever said, I love you. Right enough, he didn't say a lot, I love you, but he was very affectionate. He'd give me a hug and stuff like that. Before I knew, I thought of getting married. Yeah, I'm going to have a flat. I'm going to be away from him. I'm going to be away from my old man. That sounds so bad. But you don't know what love is. So the first person that shows you kindness, oh, I've gone.
Oh, sorry. You still on?
Yeah. Still there.
Well, I don't know what happened here. Hold on.
You're still there. Don't worry.
Okay, that's fine. The first person that has showed me kindness, I thought that must be love. So I got married, and to him I had 4 beautiful children. But the age difference, it started to show. Once the children had all started school, by this time I knew the things that had happened to me in Quarriers was wrong. I knew the things that had happened with my old man was wrong. But I wanted it to be me. I wanted to have a life, not just be a mum, a wife. I needed to find me. So I've not got a bad word to say about my husband. Not one bad word. He was a gentle, kind man. He kept me on a budget. But in a way, I'm glad he did, because I wouldn't have known what to do with money, because I'd never been taught what food costs or to buy clothes. I'll give you an instance. My sister, my brother and I, we thought, let's try and get locked up by the police. Because if they lock us up, they'd have to come to the house and speak to the old man. So we went into Woolworths. Remember, 14, 12, 11, went into Woolworths. And you know, they used
F.W. Woolworth.
they used to have something called the pick and mix.
Yeah.
These different sweets. So we went along there eating as much of the sweets as we could and putting some in a bag. I stole some socks. I stole a bra. I don't know why I stole a bra, but we stole stuff anyway. And we got taken into the back shop, and we thought, yes, police are going to come. We're going to get taken, be in a police station. The police did come, but they took us back to the old man. So we found out, don't trust the police either, because they're not going to listen to you. And I'll give you another thing about the police while I'm speaking about it, and I heard you there. I'd only been in Dundee maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the most. Me and another friend, we went to a dance in Kirriemuir. It was just a village just past Dundee. And we missed the last bus home. About 14 I was. And we'd missed, we thought, oh my God. And I thought, I'm going to get hammered if I don't get home. So we started to hitchhike. So we're walking along this road, no idea where we were. We missed the last bus. There was hardly any traffic. And we seen the highlights of this car coming towards us. So we thought, right, do it. So we just waved our hands. The car stopped. It was a police car. We said, oh, I've missed the bus. Could you take us home? And the policeman turned to me and he went, only if you make it worth our while. So I'm not that fond of the police. I don't actually do trust the police, I must admit. I know there is good and I know there is bad. But I'm going to go back to, I need to take a wee break. I'm getting a wee break.
Yeah.
You want to take a few minutes?
Aye.
Just take a few minutes. Just have a few minutes. Just have a wee break.
Just a wee bit, just because.
No problem. No
it's just
problem.
thinking about.
You're doing brilliant.
Absolutely amazing, darling. Absolutely amazing.
She's some girl.
Aye.
God, thanks.
Can I just get 5 minutes and I'll be back?
It's gonna be
All right, darling.
Okay.
But while you have a little break, there's a couple of things you said there that I'm going to make a point on. You're all right. Just have a little break, and you mentioned a few things like that. I never had no love and affection as a child, and I used to get so infatuated when I met a girl or something like that. I used to spoil every relationship I went with because I used to be overpowering because I was a loveless kid, and I was the youngest sibling of four, and like I was almost like the runt of the litter as well. So I had it quite tough. And then when you talk about the likes of the carbolic soap, yes, the sting from the carbolics, if you got it in your eyes, and the taste in your mouth was forever lasting. The slapping and the beating they used to use, and they used to use the floor scrubbing brush on us as well in the bath in Beechholme, and that scrubbed and took your skin off. And then when they put the soap in, it used to burn so badly, and then wounds, like it was like a kind of caustic acid, and it was kind of, it was so horrible. And he used to burn you. I mean, when he used to, he used to smack you in the bath and slap you in the bath and do horrendous things. And I used to curl up into a ball to try and protect myself, but they would still hit you. And when you was in the shorts, they had a thing of holding you by the scrack of your neck, holding you by the back of your neck, and then slapping your legs to try and control you while they were giving you beatings. And the carbolic soap used to burn so much against your skin, it was unbelievable. If your legs and that weren't red raw. So when you talk about carbolic soap, I thought this might sound strange. I've got to be careful how I word it, but it might sound strange. I thought I was the only one it happened to, and I thought, was it in my imagination that they did this cruelty to children? And then when you told me about what happened to you, I went, oh my God. And then when Jean said they were doing it to her in Beechholme in the 1950s, and you don't know what to say, it's kind of like a sigh of relief that you think, I didn't make it up. It wasn't in my imagination. The cruelty was personified by evil people, really evil people. They were not child carers. They were totally unprofessional. Sandy, you want to come in, mate? You're muted, Sandy. You're muted. That's me telling you to mute, isn't it?
Yeah,
Sorry, but that's me telling you.
No. My own stupid fault. But while you were in Beechholme, or anyone else was, had just people come in to see, make sure you were okay, or could you go to somebody to talk to? You know, like, say you were getting abused, could you go to someone to talk to? Had you that?
No.
No,
No, we weren't allowed to, because we were of a young age and we weren't allowed to say anything. If you said anything, you got beaten or punished even more. And Jane was talking about being bounced perversely off someone's knee. Now, Jeffrey Banner was the superintendent of Beechholme, did that to me. He got me in his office and he said to me in the corner of the room there was a cane. And he said, little boys like you get a heading for the cane sort of thing to try and put the fear of God into me.
yeah.
And then he grabbed hold of me and he put me on his knee and he was bouncing me up and down off his knee in a perverse way. I didn't know what he was doing, but I could sense something was wrong. If that makes sense. I mean, I didn't know nothing about sex and stuff like that.
You were talking about this as well. That was us as well, scrubbing brush and stuff, carbolic soap. But did you get bleach put in?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. It was in green bottles.
Yeah. I thought it was disinfectant.
Right.
But because that was strange as well, because my mum always used to put, I don't know, I don't know about a catfall, but she always used to have a thing about putting Dettol in the bath. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. You know the Dettol, the disinfectant?
Yeah, well, I
Some,
can tell stories about that
and,
because
and that's what I thought it was. There was this green stuff. I'm sure it was a green stuff. Yeah, and they used to put that in the bath. I'm sure they used to put that in the bath
yeah,
because it had a smell.
oh Christ, because I remember after the Couriers, my mum, it was a big, what did they call them? They mentioned this to me at the abuse inquiry. It's Irish sinks or something like that, they call them, the big deep sinks. And
Yeah.
I remember at Couriers, they used to, put bleach in that and do stuff. And my mother, in the cottage where I was born, we had one in the laundry room thing. And my mum used to put blankets in there, put the bleach, and it was after Couriers that I seen this bottle. It was the first time after Couriers I'd seen this, and I was like, "Oh Christ!" I went out of the house, but I remember I asked my mother, I goes, "Why did you put that in there?" And seemingly this is a thing that way back then they did when they were washing blankets. They would put bleach to whiten them and stuff, and white shirts and stuff. It whitened them. It brought out the whiteness. So, oh God, that was something else. But what's the Dettol? And this is true. I drank a bottle of that one night.
You drank it?
I didn't ask to drink it. It was the first time I threw it.
Oh my God.
And we were in the playroom, and it was Bible reading. We get Bible bloody reading every night. And after that, this guy, he goes, "Does anybody know any bad words?" And I didn't even know what he meant by a bad word. And this wee boy, I'm not mentioning his name, but he went and he put his hand up. He goes, "And what word do you know?" And he went, "Fuck." Anybody else? And then it tried. And I come out, I know that word as well. The 2 years for me to drink bleach.
Oh,
You know, bleach, Dettol. That's
yeah.
it. We to drink that. And when I mean, wow.
Yeah, they used to do the bathroom was a torture chamber for us.
It's a two-prong, and every one of us were petrified. I was shit scared there. And they had this two-prong belt swinging it, drink it, and that's true. That is a true story.
Mm. But yeah, I did. I think it was bad enough, Sandy, with them putting the carbolic soap in your mouth and in your eyes, and the burning and the beatings you were getting, and slapping and stuff like that. I remember getting abused in the bedroom by Audrey Wilson, and I'm not frightened to say Grace Robinson was the house mother and Audrey Wilson was a deputy, and she abused me in the boys' dormitory, and the kids. What happened was when the staff used to come into the dormitories, the kids turned their backs.
Yeah.
So they didn't get involved, didn't see anything, and they weren't punished. Because if they'd turn round, they'd either get a whack or they knew what they would get, or things must have happened to them for them to know the routine, and everybody just turned their back on you. And it was so strange. I must admit, I turned my back because of what happened to me. But there are things I haven't said. There were a lot of things I haven't said, and because the abuse was it was a daily thing kind of thing, and the punishments that they lashed out to children, you wouldn't believe that grown men would punch children in the head, kick them up the arse, or I know you get a kick up the arse, they used to say, but do you kick children? Do you slap children's back legs? And, do you do this? Do you put carbolic soap in their eyes, in their mouth? Do you kind of torture them? Lock them in rooms, make them stand and face walls for hours and hours and end. Do you give them food if they don't eat it? Make them eat it the next day.
Yeah.
And put it in front of them again. terrible things they used to do in Laburnum. It was a horrible, horrible house. I hated Laburnum, hated it. And all my siblings were in Beechholme. And they put us all in separate houses, which made it even worse because we never ever saw each other again as a family ever in our lives again. Not the four of us never ever shared the same room ever again in our life. And it made my brother a very, very angry man and a very, very kind of very tough man. He was like my father, a very rough and tough man. I don't remember too much about my father, but he was a bit of a street fighter and a bit of a brawler. And he would stand out. I remember seeing him on one occasion when I was a kid, standing at the front door in his long, pissy, yellow long johns and white vest. He used to wear white long john trousers and white vest. And he was pissed and he wanted to take the world on.
We'll come through. We'll come through.
I'm okay.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
okay.
There you go. We're okay for Jane to go on?
Yeah, you carry on, Jane, love. As long as you're okay, just take your time and just, it's so fantastic that you're doing this because from a survivor like yourselves and going through, it's kind of like mirrors some of the stuff that you've gone through, but not. I don't think I had it as bad as you guys. Carry on, Jane.
I hear the hurt in you, and I hear the anger in you. And I think if you've been a child in care, you're drawn to another child in care. You seem to know. It's an unspoken word, but you seem to know. I used to think I had a ladle on my back, a label on the back of my clothes or something, and I'm going to speak a wee bit more now about Quarriers because at the end of my files, it just says, Jane is married now, that's it. So I'm going to go back to some of the stuff that happened in Quarriers, and I was hearing you saying about turning your back when you were in your bed. Well, I had a friend, and I don't even know if I've told Sandy this story, and she was in a father and mother cottage, different age girls, mostly girls, a couple of boys. But the house father at night time used to shout, put that light out. So one girl would get up and put the light out, and whatever girl that was went into his room. So the older girls, they used to try and make sure it was never one of the wee ones, and we, just to protect them. So they said, but there's no way of protecting anybody because they have their own sneaky way, of turning you from a happy person to a terrified of everything. I mean, when I was in Quarriers, you would have thought I would have been safe being in a house with two women. My sister often says that to me. We were kind of lucky that we didn't have a father with us because apart from being a poster child, I was so petite. I would have been his ideal kid. But the cottage auntie we had, and I'm not frightened to say her name because she's dead now anyway, Dolly McCullough. There was an annex on, there was a girls' dormitory. Her annex was onto that. Then there was a boys' dormitory, and then another older girls' dormitory. And she used to come into the room. The weird ones used to go to bed maybe about 7 o'clock. And the older ones would come up, make sure you said your prayers into bed. And then the older ones, they would come up later. But she used to come into the room and she used to say, come. And she would take a girl into her bed and she would do things to the girls. I don't want to speak of it.
You're okay.
Is it?
I'm here.
Is it
I want
okay?
to say something.
She would come into the room and pick a girl and she would touch it in ways I now know is wrong, but she'd make you do the same back to her. So I used to blame myself when I was older. I used to think, am I just as bad as her because I touched her back. Does that make me bad? You turn it, instead of being a victim, you kind of make yourself be, did I deserve it? Was it something I said? Was somewhere I looked? Was it? But no, the only two things they needed, the same with you, the only things they needed was a belief in God and a love for children. They didn't say what kind of love for children. I can't think of anybody that I knew in care that when they came out that their first marriage worked. Most of the ones I know, the first person that said, I love you, or showed them a kindness, they thought, must be love. Or did what you said you do, you were overpowering to them, you smothered them, and it's not easy as you get older, but then something happens and you finally learn what love is. For all the years that have been stolen, all these horrendous events, you try to put them behind you, but you can't. I'm still in therapy, and thank God I'm in therapy, because you think as you get older, you're going to cope with anything after being in care. You can cope with anything and anybody. I had a brother and sister in care. My brother was in a boys' home, and unknown to me, my blood sister was in my cottage. But you were told the boys and girls in your cottage, that was your family, that was your brothers. And the only way I found out that this little redhead girl that latched onto me, unbeknown to me, we were actually blood sisters. And I only found out the day that the old man was meant to be coming around to visit, down to Corriers to visit, and we were kept in our Sunday best. We had special clothes for a Sunday. We were kept in our Sunday best, and three of us were put in the parlour together. That was when we found out we were brothers and sisters. How horrendous. That bond, it took years, and then the bond was easily broken again, and now we were back together again, but they broke us as a family. They broke us as children, but the damage it does as a family. I heard you speak about your brother. It's so understandable from another person that went through it. How can you make a bond with somebody you didn't really know? And then they're angry because they're feeling the hurt, and you were the youngest. I heard you saying that you were the youngest. So they're going to be feeling guilty that they didn't know that and couldn't protect you. Because I know with my sister, when I got married, I remember at the reception thing, my sister was crying, and somebody came up to her and said, you should be happy for Jane getting married. And she said, no, she said, it's not that. She says, I'm going to be left on my own with him now. My sister ended up sleeping in woods, walking about with no shoes on, doing anything, stealing milk and rolls off of doorsteps. She ended up being in a kind of, she went a young women's Christian hostel. She was in that because she was so institutionalized. She didn't know how to cope with the outside world. I'd got myself a man that did everything for me. So I wasn't having to, again, I was being controlled, but I didn't see it as that. My brother, he was in and out of Bristol. He's in England somewhere, Blackpool and everything. But when Mum was the first man, the same thing, the first man that showed her any affection, he took her out for a meal. And he actually turned to her and said, what would you like to eat? She went, what do you mean, what would you like to eat? Now, she must have been about 16, 17 at this time. Nobody had ever said to her, what would you like to eat? How hard is that? How bad? And when I think back on it and I think, how selfish was I? I was only thinking of myself, getting myself away from the old man. I didn't stop to think that he'd take it out on my sister. But she ended up, she went and she worked in a vet's and she got accommodation in that place as well. So she didn't have to put up from it. She came to stay with me for a wee while when I was married. But I'm going to tell you something, and some people possibly think I'm the most rotten person in the world. My old man, I had to go into hospital for treatment every 3 months. I had to go in for
Yeah, every 3 months.
Every 3 months I had to go in to get. Can you explain that?
Right. Jane has got heart problems, and she's also bothered with her back. Her spine's, we know her spine's going to give up one day. I know that Jane will be in a wheelchair one day. That doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother me at all. I'll always be there for her. No, that hasn't it?
I get angry at me sometimes.
Okay, we're not staying to do with each other, but well, Jane and I were not just friends, were. I don't know. I can't think of the right word to say, but
Nuts.
nuts. We're that as well, but no, we're really going brilliant together.
Let me just say something, Sand. Let me just say something. When we was in the bedroom dormitories, and I said this to Sue once, and I said, in your house, did you used to have them green kind of top blankets? They used to have these type of top blankets that you used to put on the top of the bed. And they had tassels at the top and tassels at the bottom. And I used to play with the tassels. I don't know why I had a thing of playing with the tassels. And whether it was a nervous thing or not, I was always playing with these tassels. But when the kids used to turn your back and you used to look over, all you could see was this green thing. And I always remember this green bedding thing when people, and it was almost like in perfect unison that everybody was facing, no matter which way the wall faced or the bed faced, the face was always up against the wall. And I always remember that. And I remember another thing I wanted to say was that they gave us some, and I was telling you about the food. If you didn't eat it, they gave you the next day and made you eat it the next day. Now, they gave me some fish once, and it was, the smell of it was horrible. And I'd never had it before, and it was quite overpowering and very strong. And it came out, and this yellow fish, and I thought, I've never seen that before. I've never seen it before. And they said, eat it, boy. And it was swimming in this white stuff, and it was supposed to have been cooked in milk or something. I don't know. They made me eat this thing, and I didn't want to eat. I didn't like it. And they gave me the next day, and the next day I ate a bit, and I got a bone stuck and lodged in my throat, and it scraped all my windpipe on the inside, and I couldn't eat nothing for about a week. I was on almost like rations, if that sounds corny enough. I was in bread and water, kind of like for nearly a week, because it had really scratched my windpipe. And do you know, I never ate fish again for 35 years because of that one incident. And it's funny how something sticks in your mind and you don't forget things and things like that. And then the thing with my sister Anne was my oldest sister. There's a year difference between me and Frank, my brother. There was 3 years difference between Margie, my middle sister, and my eldest sister Anne was 5 years older. And I used to call Anne, because I was the youngest, I was the baby of the front, I was the runt of the litter. I used to call Anne Mummy Anne. Can you believe that?
I'm going to go back to a bit that you were speaking about the feeding there. And in Quarriers, I was called a lazy eater. I didn't like to chew. I just didn't like liver. So when they put liver down to me, I just popped back and refused. It was put down to me for night time, I refused. Breakfast, I refused. To let you go about 4 meals before the said enough's enough. But if you're sick, no. What they would do is one person had this arm, one had that, arms out, and then Dolly McKillop would come behind, pull your nose up, your hair back, and force the food in. And even if you were sick, That was all forced into you.
I've seen it.
You'd
I've
be
seen it.
choking, and how they thought that was helping you to learn to like something. I still can't look at liver. I'm not a great meter anyway, but you know how I was away to say something earlier about something I've got to say because you might think I'm really bad. I'm going to say it. Okay. I was in the hospital, as Sandy was saying, getting my treatment, and I was just coming out, and my stepsisters recognised me, and she shouted to me, "Oh, Jane, Dad's in hospital." I went, "Oh, is he? Good." So I went round to check, and his neighbours were there, and he's been everybody's friend. Mr. loves him, and he made out he was a perfect fella. Everybody loved him. His neighbours were there, and I just put my head round the door, and I went, "Oh, it's true." I went, "You must know you're dying if I'm here." And then I left him. Then I heard that he'd got cancer all through his body and he didn't have long to go. So my brother had come up from England, and him, his wife and me went up in at night time, and we knew that he was just about to go. And my brother went into the room with his wife and came out. I went in on my own and I stood at the bottom of my bed. I hope he heard me. And I just looked at him lying there, pathetic. I just looked at him and I said, "You pathetic little man. Who's the winner now?" I said, "I hope you burn in hell." And he just died.
God.
You don't think bad of me for saying that?
No, because the simple reason, the way you was treated and what happened to you, no.
It's the only way I could get him. It's the only way, and I'm glad I did it, because in the end, I'm still here. I've got a life. You know, he did everything to make it hell for us. He was only interested in his new family. He'd got married when I was only 7. Quarriers didn't even think of telling me anything like this. You know, and I know nothing about my mother. I used to feel sorry for her. I used to, but when I looked at the old man, I thought, no wonder Mum left you. You know, no one look at you, you horrible man. And I was at my work one day, and our secretary came. She said, I was out lunch or something at a meeting, and I came in, and the secretary says, "Somebody phones to speak to you." She says, "I've got a number here. It says you're his brother." And I thought, what? So I phoned a number. Sure enough, it was a brother. He wanted to come to meet me and my sister. Not the brother I was brought up with. This is a different brother. So my sister's more ballsy than me. She's a lot braver than I am. She's got it tough, so she gives the impression she's tough. She's not that tough. So she says, "Right, we'll phone, we'll make a meeting." So we agreed to meet him, but there was 2 of them. So we met in a pub. The minute they walked in, we knew right away they were our brothers. Ended up, my mum had applied to Quarriers to take in these 2 boys, Billy and Andy. Quarriers had said no. They had a horrible time in foster care. But the rest of it is, ended up, there's 16 of us. My mum dropped kid after kid after kid, and everyone ended up in care. I don't know my mum. I know nothing about her, apart that she likes sex by the sound of it. That's it. And she likes being pregnant. I know nothing about her at all. And somebody said to me once, what would happen if you were to meet her? She'd have to be about 87 for to be old enough to have had a kid in the first place. And I'm the second youngest. So I don't know what I'd say, you know that? I can honestly say I do not know what I would say to her. I'd maybe say why. That's part of being a child in care. Why? You're never going to get the answers. You're never going to be able to say, you always think it's something you did. Why didn't they want me? Was it something I did? Was it a way I looked? Was it?
Yeah.
You're always looking for a reason, aren't you? You're always trying to find. And
you question yourself, don't you?
Yeah, to do everything. But then I thought everything bad that had happened, that was me, that was my life. Everything was going to be smooth. My blood brother, David, and my sister Wilma, we're both the same parents. 3 of us were in Colliers. Each of us has lost a child. My brother lost a wee boy just before he was 6. My sister lost a boy just the day of his 30th birthday. And I lost my son when he was 19. So people say to me, how are you so placid? I don't say I'm placid, but other people seem to say I'm too nice, put it that way. It's not a case of too nice. It's a case of, if I keep letting this bother me, if I keep letting my past influence my future, I'm never going to move forward. I'm never going to have a life. So I'm not going to let them win anymore. Colliers have still got things to answer for, and we're going to make sure the truth comes out. I think that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, somebody just come on. I've just admitted somebody else.
No bother.
What I think is, you've said a lot tonight, haven't you? And it's taken it out of you a little bit. I can see that you're quite emotional with it. Well, you know, it's very, very difficult to. It's very difficult to talk about what happened to us. And when you've been abused as a child, people find it hard to believe, and they don't. They say, "How can such things happen to you?" You're right, darling.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry, darling.
it's okay. It's okay.
Some girl likes you.
Oh man,
No.
she had me. She had me in tears before she even spoke.
I had to.
And because I remember what you told me last time when we first started this journey.
Parabolic.
But you're a very, very brave and very strong woman, and there's nothing. You're going to get me going in a minute. And that's the trouble with this. When you're with collective survivors,
Yeah.
it's difficult because you can feel that pain inwardly.
Mhm.
And it's a very, very difficult thing. You could go to anybody, you can go to any single one, but it's very, very, yeah, it's not.
I don't want to upset you, you know, because I can see, I can see the emotion in your face and in your eyes, you know, and it's
Because I've been there.
Yeah. And
I've been there, and every time I speak, whether I'm at a rally or wherever the case might be, if I'm being interviewed or I'm at a rally, you've got to put yourself back in that child's shoes, go back into that time of being that little person that you were, and no matter what you say and what you do, you're opening up to a horrible world. I think when I was in Beechholme and we used to have our set meals around the tables and stuff like that, I was only too pleased once they opened the door and said, "Go on, go out to play." And I didn't want to come back in the house. I wanted to stay outside. I'd climb up top of the trees. I ran away 3 times in Beechholme because even when I used to come in, sometimes they'd call you in. And you wasn't allowed to use the front door. You always had to use the back door.
yeah.
And they had a thing about it. You had to use the back door. The front door was for guests only or staff. And then I remember coming in a few times and she'd say to me, Grace Robinson, say to me, "I've been calling you, Merritt, where you been?" And whack, I'd get a whack round the back of the head. And I thought, what have I done? I've been outside playing. I'm a child. You know, and I come inside and I get a whack round the head. But by the time I'd got beaten so many times in Larch by fists and things like that by Ian McLaren, by the time I got to Ash and Gordon Reed used to punch you in the head. I was coming down the corridor one day and going towards the kitchen in the backyard, and for no reason at all, he just punched me straight in the back of the head. And I just turned around and laughed at him. And I just carried on and walked away, and I thought, you can't hurt me anymore. How much more can you do to me? You've beaten me, you've abused me, you've punished me, you've tortured me, you've done everything under the sun. And people have said to me in my lifetime, you've grown up, you've got a chip on your shoulder. And I think I've got good reason to have.
You got it right.
My first 25 years of life were non-existent. I'd put bricks through windows just to get a night in the police cell because of sleeping rough on the streets of London. Because you can be a nuisance for so long on people's sofas, and you can sofa surf for so long, but people like their own little world and their own little environment, and you can overstay your welcome. And it's never ever the same. It's never your place. You can't do what you want to do. You can't walk around naked if you want to do, or whatever the case might be. I've slept in parks, and when you were talking about it earlier, I've done exactly the same. I've slept in parks, I've slept in bus stops, I've slept at stations, and they used to have soup kitchens at stations. And you get a hot cup of soup, and it was hot. It was always hot, and you get a bun. Remember them?
Yeah.
Hi Alan. Hi Alan. How you doing? Can I ask you a question, Alan? With the I've often heard you speak about the people that carried out these things to you, but was it encouraged for the older children to behave in this way to the younger children in the homes? Was there like a pecking order of age where the older lads would bully the younger lads, like
Yes.
almost like an initiation kind of? They would have seen it as an initiation maybe, but that would have been encouraged, I imagine, by workers.
Yeah, I turned into one of them.
Because this is something that Joe and Bobby talk about. They talk about the older boys would like hold them down, you know.
I turned into one of them. Now, what the older boys used to do with me, they used to make me fight a twin brother, a guy called Michael. I'll say his name because I feel disgusted for what I actually did to him. And this older boy used to say to me, make him dance. And I used to say, right, dance. And like that. And he'd say, hit him if he don't dance. Right? And I said, I don't want to do that. And he'd give me a punch and say, make him dance. And if he didn't dance, I'd have to hit him. And then I'd punch him and he'd punch me. And if I didn't do what he asked me to do, the older boys used to beat me up. So I became an abuser and a bully myself in some respects. And I don't like saying it, but I didn't have much option. Either it's kind of like dog eat dog.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do. Go on, Jane.
I was just saying what you were saying there. Was it Jason that asked that question? Yes. Yes, definitely. The older girls actually used to touch the younger girls, you know, touch them up, touch them in places, and the little boys, because we were a mixed cottage. And I remember two girls that were older, and they used to get a wee girl and a wee boy and stand them on the bed and touch their privates and everything. That was the older girls. And it was one of them that started calling me Stumpy, you know. And remember I mentioned to you about having a plaster on, and I struck her in the face with that arm. She never called me Stumpy again. But yeah, it was definitely a lot of the older ones, that's all they knew.
It must be horrible, that, Jane, when Sandy was telling that story about he met somebody and it all brought it back and it all came back, and he was going, I'm listening to the story, and then she turned around and said, I remember her, we used to call her Stumpy or something.
Yeah.
And then you couldn't believe that, could you?
Oh, that well, Jesus Christ, that was just in my back garden. You'll see when you come up, my back garden, I look onto our playing field, swing park. And a woman was coming walking down, and I just still looked over and I went, hello. And we started talking. And I don't know how, but Quarters come in and she goes, oh, I was in Quarters. I goes, oh, I was in there with Jane. Now, that's the only thing. So I showed and Jane come out. And the next thing, she was talking away. And then she turned around and she goes, Well, are you Jane Taylor? Jane went, yeah. She went, oh, Stumpy. I remember you, Stumpy Fingers. I was like, oh my God. Jesus Christ, what a bloody thing to say. You know, Jesus, kids will do that. I can accept that. You know, kids are cruel to each other. Kids are the cruelest things out to each other. But when you're an adult, you know what to say, know what to say. You know?
Yeah.
And honestly, yeah, that floored me.
I don't know if I asked you before. Did they used to? Did you used to have the name of quarries in your clothing?
Yes.
Yeah, they did the same with Beechholme. They did all your clothing. They used to have in the label used to be kind of red writing on a white label, and it was just said Beechholme. That's all it said. The name of the kids' home. Yours might have said Quarries. I said Beechholme. Go on, Jane.
We never had that because I'll give you, for instance, we never owned anything, not even the clothes on our backs. I could have on a pretty little skirt or dress one day, somebody else has got that dress the next day. We didn't even own our clothes. Once they went to the laundry, they were washed. Anybody else in the, we're speaking about thousands of kids were in quarries, thousands. So
we got a change of clothing once a week. That's it.
Yeah.
We only got one set of clothes a week, and I think if I remember rightly, a Saturday was kind of clothing change day, and yeah, the things they used to do. It's horrific to think that when I was being abused by Audrey Wilson in Laburnum, and when I was being abused, I don't know who that is, and I'm lying in the bed, and Audrey Wilson's just touching me up in the bed. And feeling around my private parts and start touching me all up and stuff like that. And then I pissed the bed. I curled up into a ball and I wet the bed. And I curled into a little ball. And it was the first time that, the first time that, the abuse started. And I just stayed in that corner. Because I remember Beechholme, because it was named Beechholme, was lined by beech trees, and the lights used to flicker, right, and dance and make a dancing pattern on the ceilings, and my shadows, the shadows were broken up by this big woman's shadow, and she was leaning over me and touched me, and then I remember looking for some kind of thing, and I was looking at the kids in the other beds, and all their backs were to me, and as if, and then something happened another time in the dormitories, and then it was somebody else. Something was happening to somebody else, and I daren't look because that night, the next morning, because I'd wet the bed, they got me up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I got the biggest hiding, and they called me a filthy little retard because they was calling me a retard now, and I don't know why they used that horrible term, and they used to hit you and beat you, and I don't know who's trying to get in there.
Anna, we've got Lee Garrett joining. He starts in 5 minutes, and his guests are coming in with him. But you got 5 more minutes left though to carry on.
All right,
and
so
then
you've got coming anytime he wants.
His guests are coming in as well, but they'll all sit and wait back until you finished. Okay, so you've got 5 minutes.
It was cheers, mate, and they knocked me down the stairs and told me to carry my bed sheets, my wet bed sheets, down the stairs, and took me into the bathroom. They stripped me naked in the bathroom and told me to wash my bedding in cold water and use the carbonic soap to wash my sheets that they used to put in our mouths and in our eyes, and I actually used the scrubbing brush that they used punishment on me to do, and I was getting beaten and whacked, and they told me to take my clothes off and stand there naked, and I was getting beaten by the staff in the bathroom, and they told me afterwards that I had to get into that bath, that I had to wash my sheets in to wash myself, and the cruelty was, yeah, it was hard. It was hard to talk about, and it's
We've got you, brother. Hello, Alan. We've got you, brother.
Alan, we help each other. We help each
We're
other.
here for each other, but I know what he has.
You're helping me to talk. You're helping me to face up to things that I've carried, and I should never have. I wasn't to blame, and now were you to blame. We were the children. They were the adults. So never ever be ashamed of the tears, because that's just water. Don't let them get to your heart.
Was it you say? The two were.
Yeah, they took for spring and summer, but don't let them take our autumn and winter.
we've got to go in a minute because it's Lee's show.
Sorry.
And
You stay on as long as you want. Don't you worry about that. I'm not going to kick you off.
Lee's a fantastic guy. And
Yes.
if you'd have seen Sandy, if you'd have seen the various videos that have come all from all over the country over the weekend, and the classic one was Mark going for an ice cream. That was absolutely.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Just a little
I love that.
Before you go, Mark Steele actually got arrested and detained, so they held him. They're reading out these rights and reading out what laws you have broken. There was these COVID law things, stupid. Anyway, so he listened to them and says, "Right, Mark, I need to take your name." He says, "No, I'm away for an ice cream," and he just walked away. The police officer and all with all his gang behind him, was about 20 of them behind, all followed us to the ice cream van.
Yeah, I see that.
Ice cream,
because you was filming it, weren't you?
It was a picture. So just like she looked up, and there was like 20 police officers surrounding that van. Like, oh, that's good.
You was filming it, Lee, weren't you?
For us.
You was filming it.
Yeah, was I?
You was brilliant, and I just thought it was so brilliant. And then I think it was the same day that they came up. Another couple came up and spoke to Mark, and ended up going away, and you all cheered.
Yes, that was the same day. And then Piers Corbyn done the same. He spoke to them, and they walked away again. But then
what was that bit where Corbyn was being pushed away?
Arrested, didn't he? He got arrested. He got arrested for 23 hours, and a bloke got beaten or chucked over or something, and had a heart attack. And
yeah, I see that.
All on the same day. Ridiculous.
Yeah, so you do. Hang on, Jane. Can Jane say quite a quick word before we go?
Yes.
I was just a way to say, if that had been me, I would have got the ice cream and said, "He's paying."
Anyway, Lee, we're going to let you get on with your show now, and I hope you have a good show. And I'm sorry about that. I just lost that at the end, and I didn't mean to, and I do apologise about that. Sometimes when you,
that's what we're all here for. We're all here for each other, to support and help each other. All what we're here for.
But Jane, that was brilliant. Thank you for everything you did tonight, and Sandy, thank you for encouraging Jane all the way through that. And Jane, you're an absolute legend and an angel. And I look forward to being with you on the 26th of this month. And thanks, Sandy, for getting me to speak at the rally on the 26th. I'll probably end up crying my eyes out at that one as well.
Oh, I mean, I done it on Saturday there. I just, oh boy, I don't know how many times. And as I was telling you before, you'll always get the chance. And it was the same.
Anyway, thanks, guys. I've got to leave you because it's only fair on Lee now to have his show.
No problem.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate. See you, Lee. Thanks, mate.
No problem. What's what you're doing?
Bye.